Hello everyone. I have not been able to do any videos because I have been sick for about 2 weeks, and I'm finally feeling a little bit better, although my voice is still a little raspy. First, I want to thank you all for watching my videos, and I want to start with this quote. How many of you have heard the saying, don't forget to thank God when you get what you pray for? And this quote is by Dishka Aurora, but it is confirmed in the Bible. I have been reading the book of Deuteronomy chapter 8, and we see here that Moses was reminding the people of Israel of God's promise, and that was never to forget to thank God when they enter the promised land. Moses had the task as a leader to prepare the Israelites, even though he himself was not going to enter the promised land. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 6 and 11 states, therefore you should keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of waters, fountains and springs that float out valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land of whose stones are iron, and out of your hills you can dig copper. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God for the good of the land, which he has given you. Beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandment, his judgment, and his statutes, which I have commanded you today. In this Bible verse, Moses is speaking to the Israelites before entering the new land. And Moses was going over the things which God instructed him to remind the Israelites so that they do not forget to thank God for all he has done for them. The promise which God made to them of blessing, abundance, and wealth once they reach that promised land. And the same applies to us. The description of the land and of everything that the land possessed was necessary to show them how they will be able to sustain themselves with food, and also how they will be able to be profitable for them to use all the blessings there for means of financial support. For example, the description of the many different waters resources available to them in comparison to only the available water supplied in Egypt, which was coming directly from the Nile. This was important for them to know the difference between the increase of quality of life and the blessing that God was extending to them. And this is the moment that perhaps many realize that even though they spent so many years in the desert, it was all worth the wait, because now they can get to enjoy abundance in everything. I'm sure that most were grateful to God, but one thing that Moses makes clear to them in verse 10 is when he said, when you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless the Lord your God. We all know the history of the Israelites, that they had a habit of constant complaining and turning away from God to idols. Moses reminded them that they should be grateful and worship God for the promise. He did this so that they do not become complacent, so that they do not become greedy or forget to praise God. Another point that we must highlight is that sometimes when people are blessed with abundance, they risk becoming arrogant, selfish, or they feel self-sufficient enough on their own and forget that it was God's outpouring of blessing in their lives. God's blessings are sufficient because he can turn something small into a lot. Wealth and riches in those days were evident by the possession of land, waterways, olive trees, honey, barley, and other quantitative, tangible things. It was like owning bars of gold. They were the equivalent of a billionaire in our present time. God's promises, it's not fake gold or liquid gold. God's promises are real and long-lasting blessing. Although it may take some time, like in the case of the Israelites, it took them 40 years, but they got more than they were expecting, making it much more worth the wait. God bless.